Hello and welcome to Fiction Fans, a podcast where we read books and other words too. I'm Lily.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we'll be discussing The Last Hero by Terry Pratchett, illustrated by Paul Kidby. But first, Sarah, what's something great that happened recently?
Something great that happened is I went to a concert last night. That was fun.
Nice.
I did kind of want to be at home the entire time, but it was still a good thing because I left my house. The music was good. I was not familiar with the artists or the band before going, but I liked their music, so success.
Yeah, and concerts are fun.
Concerts are fun. I did kind of feel like the band as people were maybe a little bit of assholes. They just kind of had that vibe, you know? They did a lot of crowd surfing.
That's a choice.
Yeah. So I didn't actually like them as people, but as performers, they were great.
Well, hilariously, on the flip side of that, my good thing is that I did not leave the house at all yesterday. Specifically, I did a hell of a lot of cooking. I made pumpkin coffee cake. It's officially fall now. I have made a pumpkin baked good.
That is the fall marker.
It's like Groundhog Day. Yeah. And then I also started what I refer to as my 2-day stew, because it takes 2 days in the crock pot, but it's worth it. First, I caramelize onions for a day, as if I was going to make French onion soup. But then, this morning I added beef roast, which will then cook for another, 12 plus hours, in with the caramelized onions and stock and some herbs and things. And then by the end, we'll have beef stew that's half beef, half caramelized onion.
I think you should send me this recipe. Please and thank you.
It's not really a recipe. It's kind of just smushing two recipes together.
I think you should send me what you do for this
All right.
dish.
I can do that. It takes a hell of a long time. You do have to plan in advance, but it's not a lot of active time.
I mean, I'm fine with a meal taking 2 days if it just is 2 days in the crock pot and I don't have to do much. That's fine. I can do that.
And I'm a big wimp about onions, so it does always start with me saying, Daniel, will you chop 8 onions for me? Thank you.
That's a lot of onions.
It's half onion. That is not an exaggeration.
No, but that sounds delightful.
And then you put cheese on top. It really is like French onion soup, but with stuff in it instead of just onions.
Yeah.
And I'll probably throw in some mushrooms and carrots and stuff later today, but they don't need to cook for 12 fucking hours.
No, they do not.
So that's not done yet, except my whole house has smelled like onions for the last day and a half, and it's fantastic.
Sounds delightful.
What are you drinking this morning? We're recording in the morning for once, which is very weird.
It does make for a change. I have a tea. It is blue oolong mint tea or something. I don't actually remember the ingredients in it. I bought it in Morocco. It's very good. I'm sad that I can't buy it in the States.
You could just mix oolong and mint together.
I mean, I could. I'm sure that I could find the ingredients and make it, but that's effort.
I am drinking coffee with talon, which I'm sure I have pronounced incorrectly.
What is that?
The bottle is really cute, though, here. Listeners might be able to hear me move it because it has a cowbell on it.
Oh, that is very cute. Oh, it's
like a Spanish whiskey liqueur.
Oh, nice.
Cream liqueur, specifically. So it tastes like caramel. It's very good. And it's got a cute cowbell on the bottle.
It does sound like something that would go well in coffee.
It's very good, yeah. So just a little fun for my morning. Have you read anything good lately?
I have read a lot of fan fiction, and I have read our podcast books, and
there's been a lot of those.
Not a lot else, because yes, there's been a lot of podcast recording.
I have been reading a lot of court coverage of the FTX lawsuit. I don't know if anyone else... Well, I know someone else in the world cares about this. I don't know if there's a lot of overlap between you/our listeners and cryptocurrency drama, but it is bonkers and delightful in a Schadenfreude sense.
I'm not following it, but that does sound like a lot of fun drama.
Oh my goodness. I don't know how... Well, you said you're not following it.
Yeah.
This is kind of old news, but before the case actually started, Sam Bankman-Fried, or Fried, I don't care how to pronounce his name, I'm not going to look it up, leaked his ex-girlfriend's diary to try to smear her as a witness. Because, of course, you know, he made his ex-girlfriend the CEO of one of the companies that is getting in trouble. Clearly, I'm following it very closely.
Clearly.
Anyway, so she has recently was on the stand, and at one point after they broke up, she sent him a Google document with the pros and cons of them dating, and then like a little survey at the bottom that basically amounted to, do you like me back? Check yes or no. His response was transferring the company she worked for to Hong Kong.
I mean, I feel bad for her, because I feel like it's mean to laugh at someone for trying to ascertain whether or not someone likes them back, but also she's an adult.
Yeah. And, I mean, willingly committed a lot of fraud.
And also that, yes.
So, like, part of me is thinking, like, this is a distraction. I mean, I want the soap opera of their bullshit romantic entanglements, but that should not be part of the, no, they both did a lot of fraud, and the fact that they were in a shitty relationship does not lessen either of their participation in it.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a lot of fun to read about, though.
It sounds it. That sounds like quite some entertaining drama.
Very much so. It's an active, ongoing court case. So there's, like, the drawings of the courtroom, and then there's a couple of people who are going to the hearings and then tweeting about it during the breaks. It's just kind of fascinating. I've never followed a court case live. And so the way information is disseminated is very interesting.
Yeah, I did that for the Penguin Random House Simon Schuster merger court case. There were some journalists who were tweeting about it, like, as it was happening, or during the breaks. Yeah, it was fascinating to see it unfold and see what kind of information we got via these, like, Twitter threads.
Anyway, fascinating stuff. So no, I have not read anything. Anything but that and podcast books.
But you have read The Last Hero for the first time.
Yes, indeed. So this is wild. I mean, it's not a Discworld novel, right? Because it's an illustrated... It's not a comic book.
It's not a comic book. It's this odd kind of in-between large format illustrated novel. It's only about 172 pages. There are a lot of full-page illustrations, a lot of drawings, but
It's a novella. It's 40,000 words.
Okay, so it is in terms of content, written content, it's a novella. But it's not presented in traditional novella format where it's just text.
I know, but you say it's 176 pages, and it's like, oh, that's a decent length, but half of them are pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other half is size 24 font.
Yeah, the font is quite large, but it doesn't really follow the format of any of the other Discworld stories, because it is this illustrated novella.
So my first reaction to picking this up was that because it is such a different format, did it feel like a good introduction for new people? I mean, the illustrations could totally help introduce someone to Discworld. Or is this just like a fun additional piece for established fans?
I think it works better for established fans, personally. Yes, the format and the illustrations are a nice, like, bonus for new readers, but I think it relies so heavily on readers having a relationship with these characters already and knowing who they are, that I don't think that new readers would...
I don't think they'd enjoy it very much. I'll say it. It's called a fable. And when you think of, like, how a fable normally works in a storytelling arena, I don't know what any of those word choices were. We'll just keep going. It generally relies on a lot of archetypes, right? Because you're not going into character background. I don't care who the woodcutter is. I just know there's a woodcutter, and I know he's exactly like every other woodcutter that's shown up in every other fable.
Yeah.
But in this case, instead of archetype characters, we're just getting characters that we already know because we've read 50,000 Discworld novels already.
Yeah. So it does rely on having that background knowledge of the characters.
Yeah, it does not introduce you to anybody, really.
No.
It's just like, Ridcully, you know who that is.
Yep.
It did at some points feel like a best of cameo collection.
I could see that.
In a fun way. Like, I enjoyed it. Sam Vimes isn't actually on the page, but Carrot makes a reference to, you know, my captain or something, and you're like, I know exactly who you're talking about, and the quote you're quoting of Vimes sounds exactly like him, and it's hilarious, and it works, and it makes me feel like an insider, because I got that reference.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, yeah, this is definitely, like, bonus material for Discworld, not
introductory material, yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I don't know when I first read it, but it certainly was not my first. I'm pretty sure I had read all of the novels before I ever read The Last Hero.
What are the different mini-series that get brought up in this? I don't think that's a spoiler, is it?
You mean what characters appear in this?
Yeah, I think the only ones left out are the witches.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically the City Watch, because we have Carrot, we have Vetinari, we don't have Vimes, but we do have mention of him. There's the Wizards, Rincewind, and the Unseen University academic staff, if they can be called an academic staff. And there's Cohen the Barbarian and the Silver Horde.
And they're sort of from the Rincewind books, though. I mean, they get mentioned in other ones, but they're most on the page with Rincewind, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Cohen shows up in the very first novel, which is a Rincewind book.
Mm-hmm.
And then we actually meet the Silver Horde in Interesting Times, which is, again, a Rincewind book. And then there's the gods and a couple of other characters.
There are some direct references to and the Temple of Small Gods. And I know that's not, like, a huge element, but that's definitely a reference to the novel Small Gods.
Yes, it is.
And how was, like, almost forgotten and then made a comeback.
Yeah.
Like, that's that book.
Yeah, that is a direct reference to that book. So yeah, it does rely on, as we've said already, all of the background knowledge that you have had reading the Discworld books up until now.
But also celebrate it. I think that was more what I was getting at. Like, yeah, it's a series of cameos, but it doesn't just feel like fan service.
It has its own story, and it's not just a series of cameos. It's a series of cameos that have a cohesive purpose.
And they get brought up because they're relevant to the plot.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Death was a little...
But Death is always like that.
Yeah, that's true. So that's fine.
So that's fine.
There was one new character, though, that we haven't met before. I mean, there were a couple of new characters, but there was a new barbarian who'd never been brought up. Vina, the Raven-haired.
I want to Google this, because I think you're right that she's never been brought up.
I feel like I would have remembered her because I loved her so much. And she actually had, like, an introduction scene. I am going to slip up and call her Xena on accident at least once.
Yeah, okay, maybe this is the first time she appears. I was just wondering if she hadn't been referenced. Like, obviously, we haven't met her before. You're 100% right about that. But we get a lot of references to other heroes in The Color of Magic. And I was wondering if maybe, like, she had been referenced, but Google doesn't seem to think so. She definitely is a parody of Xena. She's a retired hero, or I guess unretired, because she's come out of retirement after her husband has passed away. And she's this gray-haired woman with knitting needles who kicks ass.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she was great.
It was also interesting. So a lot of this, I mean, The Last Hero, a lot of this book has to do with Cohen struggling with, like, what next? Kind of that question, right? He made it. He became emperor. Now what? And so there's a lot of discussion of, like, the different paths barbarians have taken, or heroes. They use the term barbarian and hero kind of interchangeably.
I think often it's barbarian hero.
Yes, there you go. There are a lot of different paths that heroes can take when they're done heroing. I mean, obviously the main one is die in glorious battle. There's one hero that they make relentless fun of because he died peacefully in his sleep.
I don't think they make fun of him, though. I think
They pity him.
Yeah, they pity him, because that's not how a hero should go out.
I don't know. I was gonna then throw Vina in as the alternative, which is, she's, like, retired. When all the other barbarians are like, we don't care if we die, charge in recklessly. She's like, yo, I have grandkids. I would like to survive, actually.
But, I don't know, I think the difference between Vina and I forget which one of the Silver Horde it was who passed away in his sleep, is that Vina, yes, she retired. Yes, she's a little more sensible about putting her life on the line, but she's still heroing, right? Like, she went back out to the hero industry, and she still has the opportunity to die gloriously in battle, unlike Vincent, who has this very sad death in his sleep, which is, according to Cohen, quite unheroic.
I don't know. It doesn't feel like that's her intention, though.
I don't think so. I mean, I agree with you, but I think from Cohen's perspective, where, like, a glorious death is kind of the goal, I think he can respect that she has come back to heroing in a way that a death in one's sleep just makes him sad.
I don't know. It, to me, is implied that she plans on dying peacefully in her sleep someday.
Maybe.
If she's not trying to die in battle, isn't that the alternative?
Yeah, but again...
And she's just okay with that. She doesn't see that as the end of the world.
Again, I think that's her perspective and not Cohen's.
Right. And so she's an example of the perspective of, I can do heroing and also die peacefully in my sleep, and that doesn't cancel out the heroing.
Yes. Whereas Cohen just thinks that it's sad.
We get a lot of conversations around heroing in general. We also meet a villain, a Dark Lord, if you will.
Evil Harry.
Evil Harry was fantastic.
I liked Evil Harry.
This story kind of touches on the idea of heroing and villaining as an enterprise. There's a lot of talk about, like, the code of heroes and villains as small business owners.
Yeah, I think Evil Harry has a comment about how he was bringing jobs to areas of traditionally high unemployment. And there's also a conversation around what makes a hero, not in the sense of deeds, but, like, what is the line between heroic deeds and villainous deeds? Vetinari at one point points out, you know, who is determining that? Because so often it's the same thing, just from a different perspective. Like, they're doing the same thing.
Well, and it's that idea that one can't exist without the other, right? There's a lot of talk about how the hero always lets the Dark Lord escape because he has to live another day for the hero to fight him again.
Yes.
And that whole sort of, as these are the last heroes, as the title of the book implies, what does that mean for the villains, then?
Yeah.
Who are they villaining against?
But also, they're not just the last heroes because they're old, but they talk a lot about how the new heroes don't follow the same code. And so their specific brand of heroism has become kind of obsolete as modernity progresses on the disc.
It is a conversation around progression and the end of an era, in a way. Well, I would really love to talk about the art. I should probably know who Paul Kidby is, right? That name is tickling my brain.
You should, because he's talked about quite a bit in A Life with Footnotes. Paul Kidby is the official Discworld artist who took over after Josh Kirby passed away.
I'm sorry, what?
They have such similar names. It's true.
Is it just the same guy, but he put on a mustache and now he's a different person? He's trying to cover up the fact that he's immortal. So he was like, oh yeah, no, that other guy died. I'm Kidby now. I'm doing the exact same job. Don't ask questions.
You know, that wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, Paul Kidby does all of the official art. So he does the calendars and he did the illustrations for The Last Hero. He's done book covers and et cetera, et cetera.
All right, more on him in a minute. We kind of already talked about this. Who should read this book? If you like Discworld.
Yeah.
You don't even have to like a particular mini-series. It's all in here.
Most of it is in there anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
If you're only in Discworld for the witches, maybe you shouldn't read this because they don't appear. But if you like Discworld in general...
The remainder of this episode contains spoilers. Alright, so we're going to have a little mini section here at the top of the spoilers section to talk about some of our favorite art in this book. The first one that I would like to bring up is on page 23, and it is a beautiful spread of the disc, but sort of like an undead version. The turtle and the elephants are both skeletons.
It's pretty cool.
And it's right after we find out that if Cohen and the Silver Horde successfully kill all of the gods, which it's revealed pretty early, that's what they're trying to do. First they say, we're going to return fire to them because the first hero stole it. By which they mean it's a bunch of explosives.
It is
pretty fun.
It is a
pretty fun concept.
Yeah, it's a fun pun on return fire.
But if they do that, all of the magic will seep out of Discworld in the big hole they blow in it. And then, you can't have a giant turtle swimming through space without magic. So we get this huge spread. It's dope as hell. I would wear that on a t-shirt. I need a skelly turtle. It's great.
I wonder if there's any official, because there's tons of official merchandise. I wonder if there's any official merchandise with that on it.
My next favorite, and when I stumbled across it, my note was, this might be the best image in the whole book. I was proven wrong, but at the time it was, and it is, of course, Death and the Death of Rats playing with a kitten.
It's pretty cute.
I absolutely felt like it was pandering to me, but it worked, so I was okay with it.
I wouldn't say it's entirely pandering, because it's definitely canon by this point that Death has a thing for cats. So it makes sense that kind of makes sense that he's trying to figure out Schrodinger's cat.
And he stops the experiment because he's like, but I don't want the cat to die. So
Yes.
He just takes the baby kitten out of the box. That was great. I don't think the Death of Rats is actually in that scene.
I don't remember.
I don't think the Death of Rats is actually in the book.
I don't remember, to be perfectly honest. But I'm okay with just imagining that
he was there hanging out.
He was there hanging out, yeah.
Being tormented by a kitten.
Yeah. Because it's true that I think it's just Albert who is there and not the Death of Rats.
And to me that was like, this is a great image, but it doesn't actually... Anyway, that's what made it feel like pandering.
Fair.
But it was also great, so...
Fair enough.
I accept it.
I have two images that I really liked. One is on page 130 and 131, and it's a picture of Rincewind, Carrot, Leonard, and the librarian on the moon, and they're seeing one of the turtles come up right in front of them with the disc on its back, and just seeing how large the turtle is in comparison to the people is very striking. So I really liked that. And then there's also a Sistine Chapel reimagining on page 154 where Cohen is giving the finger to Blind EO. And that's just fun.
Yeah, I did really enjoy that one as well. Especially since, oh no, he's not Leonardo da Vinci.
Leonard of Quirm.
Leonard of Quirm, thank you. I mean, he is not like Leonardo da Vinci.
Yes.
Although, wasn't the Sistine Chapel Michelangelo? Yes. Years of art history have come to my aid.
I mean, Leonard of Quirm is basically all of the Renaissance painters put together.
Yes, I'm fine with that getting all smushy. I just didn't want listeners to think I thought Leonardo da Vinci painted the Sistine Chapel. Anyway, Leonard of Quirm has to paint the entire chapel in 10 days as punishment for creating a flying machine.
No.
The gods are like,
His punishment is to do it in a year, and he does it in 10 days. And the gods are really upset by that.
I thought at one point they were like, it would be impossible to do this, so we're only going to give you half the time.
Yeah, because they were originally going to give him
it was
10 years. Yeah.
That's right. And then, so they cut it down to 1, and then he did it in 10 days,
Yeah.
and everyone was mad. That's right. But it's also extra delightful that he then painted Cohen giving all of the gods the finger.
Yeah.
I mean, Blind Io specifically, but they're all up there.
Yes.
Although really, the best image in the whole book is the hardcore bard.
He's a pretty hardcore bard. It's true.
By then.
At
the beginning, Cohen the barbarian and his silver horde kidnap a bard who only sings love songs, and are like, you're gonna have to write a saga about how great we are, so everyone remembers us. And at first the bard is like, oh god, oh god, put me back. But by the end, he's totally bought into it. He's excited for adventure. He writes an amazing song about the heroes. But about halfway through the book, his lute gets destroyed. And so we kind of see him trying to find strings and things as the story goes on. And in this last image, it's him performing the amazing saga. And he's playing it on a homemade harp that uses the skull of someone as the bass. And It's just fantastic.
One of the things I really enjoyed about the Bard's character arc in this story is the way it kind of mirrors Teach's arc in Interesting Times. I don't know if you remember Teach, but I don't remember if they kidnapped him or if he just kind of got swept away by them, but he was a former teacher who is trying to teach them how to be civilized. Teach becomes a little more adventurous, and he dies at the end of Interesting Times. And his character arc is kind of mirrored by the Bard's, except the Bard doesn't die.
It kind of implies that he, I don't know, is going to do something amazing. Mm-hmm. It's cool. I liked his arc quite a bit.
Yeah.
How he's like, I can't go back to just doing love stories. He isn't even sure he wants to go back to being a bard. I mean, still doing barding, but more adventurous barding.
Yeah. And he also, I think, really comes to appreciate Cohen and the Silver Horde in a way that he doesn't in the beginning of the book. Like, in the beginning of the...
well, at first, they just kidnapped him.
They pay him.
That's true. Oh, and then he dumps the payment out in the snow. That was a beautiful moment.
It was. This book is also really sad, though, because I don't want Cohen and the Silver Horde to die or even not die. I mean, it's kind of an open ending in the sense that they go off, but their bodies are, gone.
They're spirits, right? At least that's how I interpreted it. And they can run around adventuring throughout the cosmos as spirits, and that's fine.
But it's still
and
sad.
Death is like, I respect it.
It's still sad.
But they had to die somehow, and they got to die the way they wanted to, and keep adventuring. Isn't that, like, the best case scenario?
I don't want any character in Discworld on the disc to die, ever. I know that's unrealistic, but...
I mean, it's a fantasy story, so I'm sure someone could figure it out. There is a book about no one dying, and it's not good.
I don't want anyone to not die in that way.
Okay.
I just want them to continue to have adventures forever,
And they do.
Yeah, but they also... It was sad. I was sad. That's all.
It was touching.
It was touching.
I was moved. So I did kind of clock on pretty early that Cohen wasn't just returning fire to the gods out of the goodness of his heart.
Not that kind of fire, anyway.
And then, like, maybe about a third of the way in, we get the line that he's returning fire with interest. It's like, oh yeah, yep, saw that coming.
Yeah. But that's part of the whole thing, because this is a fable, and so it does, like fables do, it does telegraph all of the story beats well in advance.
It definitely did feel like a myth. There were some kind of nitty-gritty moments that you wouldn't necessarily get in a myth, like trying to learn how to fly the flying machine. But overall, I definitely did follow a different story structure from a Discworld novel.
Yeah.
I didn't have as much of the Pratchett speaking directly to the reader philosophical moment at the end.
Not as much, no.
I think that was probably just for length, though.
Yeah, I don't think that was because of the format so much as it was the length.
I would consider those related, at least.
Okay, yeah, they are related.
I think that was great, though. I like that it sort of weighed more on implications than just coming right out and saying it.
Well, and
we get some hints in character dialogue.
You've commented before that you sometimes get tired with his grand speeches at the end of the books.
Yeah, I never disagree with them, but sometimes I think they could be a little more subtle. And I think this book is a good example of it being subtle and working very well. So, you had something crazy that you said earlier. What was it? Not crazy. I just disagreed with vehemently. So this is a fable about, returning fire to the gods, but also really Cohen is rebelling against mortality, I would say.
Yeah, I don't disagree there.
Earlier you used the phrase old age, and I wanted to argue with you, but if you just agree with me now, then that's not nothing to argue with.
I mean, I think they go hand in hand. You're right, Cohen's not really, he's not complaining about being old. He's not complaining about his wrinkles and the fact that he wears dentures and that things are a little more difficult. But mortality comes hand in hand with being old. So that was what I was getting at when I said that he's rebelling against that. It's not the physical stuff. He's not ready to die. There's a lot more that he wants to do.
Well, it starts with, there's the same story in Earth history some great conqueror gets to the ocean and realizes there's no more land to conquer and weeps.
Yeah, the bard tells that story to Cohen.
Yeah, the Discworld version, but I think there's an Earth version too.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And so it starts with kind of the idea that Cohen is upset because he had goals, he attained them, and now what? Mm-hmm. And so I think at the beginning it's sort of that he has no one left to conquer except the gods. But then it kind of morphs into just the entire infinite possibilities of the universe that there's no way that he can actually get to.
Yeah, it kind of morphs into he's actually angry at the gods because he does want to do more, but he just can't because he's gonna die soon because he's old.
Yeah. I know I kind of made a joke about it being a series of cameos earlier, and it is, but it's a very thoughtful book still.
The two are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and I just wanted to specify that. One of the other fantastic cameos, which I would say is a City Watch miniseries reference, are the farting dragons.
The swamp dragons. So as we've mentioned, Leonard of Quirm devises a flying machine because Vetinari and the wizards are trying to stop Cohen and the Silver Horde from blowing up the gods and thus destroying Discworld. But they need a way to get to the place where the gods...
Cor Celesti.
Yeah, Cor Celesti. They need a way to get there quickly because normal methods would take ages. And so Leonard of Quirm devises a flying machine that is powered by swamp dragons.
And there's dragons on the moon. And they breathe fire the other direction, just like Errol. Carrot brings up Errol.
Yes, that was a nice reference.
I don't remember which book that was.
Guards, I think. Because I think Guards is where they fight the dragon. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's where Errol comes in.
No, sweet little dragons. Little pug dragons.
They're basically pugs, but they're dragons.
All right, another reason why you absolutely have to have read Discworld novels is the character of Carrot is, like, perfectly consistent in this as he is in the City Watch books. But he's not a main character. I mean, I'd say he's one of the ensemble cast, but he definitely doesn't get the most page time. And so you get so little of him, we only see, like, the surface doofus level for the most part.
I don't know if I agree with that. It's true that he's part of the ensemble cast. I think basically everyone except Cohen is ensemble cast. But he is part of the group that goes in this flying machine to stop the Silver Horde. And we see him be very straightforward, but I don't think we see him being a doofus. Like, he's very serious about what he's doing. As in the books, he kind of cuts through all social cues and social, like, obfuscations. But I don't think that's him being a doofus.
You're right, that was the wrong word. Really, it's just, he's very simple and straightforward.
Yeah.
And for the most part, especially like him versus Leonard of Quirm, who are maybe complete opposites in every way. And then you get to the end where he's facing off against the Silver Horde, and the Silver Horde realize that 7 against 1 makes them thugs and him the hero, instead of them a bunch of heroes, because that's how heroing works.
Mm-hmm. That's what their code tells them.
And I think at one point, was it Cohen who says, I heard there was a member of the City Watch who's secretly supposed to be king, but he doesn't tell anyone because he prefers being a City Watch member. And Carrot's like, never heard of him. That got me.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, Carrot was not my favorite part of this book. He's fine.
He wasn't my favorite part of this book because he's just so minor in it, but I think the book did a very good job of, like, giving us glimpses of him, and we know what's going on in the larger picture because we've read the City Watch books. But Pratchett didn't have to put all of that on the page because we're just bringing that to the story.
Yes, I would agree with that.
He is the archetype of Carrot in this book.
I mean, Carrot's already a bit of an archetype, so...
There's one other moment. I think Vina makes the reference to how come villains always stock their dungeons with really useful items for heroes to defeat them. No, who did say that?
No, it's the bard. It comes out...
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, it comes out that both Vina and the Silver Horde are going this way because they've both individually found maps giving all of the information as how to get to Cor Celesti. And the bard points out, like, isn't it awfully convenient that there's a map showing how to get to this place that no one has ever come back from? He's got a point.
He does have a point. It's expanded to, hold on, I'm going to find that quote. Because it's also expanded to dungeons being very well stocked, and that was what I wanted to joke about. Not all of the pages had page numbers, and it drove me bonkers.
The full spread pictures didn't have page numbers on them. Oh yeah, it's true. That doesn't have a page number either. If the picture covered where the page number would go, there was no page number.
No, because it's in the middle. They totally could have put it there. Look.
Well, I can't actually see the page number on either side.
It's on this.
Yeah.
It's on.
Okay, you're right. That has pictures on both pages where I was expecting the page number. And one of the pages has the page number in the middle of the bottom of the page, and the other just does not have a page number.
They usually are in the middle. It's fine. This is not... I get that it's an art book, so it's not going to have page numbers everywhere, but it made this very difficult. Funny, really. All my life I've gone adventuring with old maps found in old tombs and so on, and I never ever worried about where they came from. It's one of those things you never think about, like who leaves all the weapons and keys and medicine kits lying around in the unexplored dungeons. And that there's a video game reference.
Yep, you can tell Pratchett played a lot of video games.
That was a lot of effort for that one comment, but I'm glad we did it.
Hashtag worth it.
Let's just pretend my long segment about page numbers was in the pet peeve corner.
We can do that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Fiction Fans.
Come disagree with us. We are on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at FictionFansPod. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com.
If you enjoyed the episode, please rate and review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and follow us wherever your podcasts live.
We also have a Patreon, where you can support us and find our show notes and a lot of other nonsense.
Thanks again for listening, and may your villains always be defeated.
Bye!